Oklahoma writer Jim Etter. Jim, thanks for coming on the show.
Nice to be here, Doug. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, your book, Thunder in the Heartland, is out in its second edition now, is that right?
Yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about what it is.
Okay, Doug, it's a book of fiction stories based on real events, real situations in Oklahoma. And the second edition has more stories in it, plus pictures, than the first edition.
Oh, so if people already have the first edition, they really need to get the second as well.
Exactly.
Oh, good.
We certainly hope so.
Okay. Now, you say it's fiction, but it's based on fact?
Yes.
Okay.
You know how everybody will, Oklahoma has so many interesting things in its background and its history. A lot of times people will say, well, there should be a book written on that, or there should be a movie about that or something. So I think that this book will be read by a lot of people because it's fiction, light reading, but based on real events. And at the beginning of each chapter is one paragraph telling about the people and place it's based on, the real facts, and then the rest of it is fiction.
Okay.
And some are serious and some are lighthearted.
Yeah. I think that people will be surprised at some of the things that are in there when they find out that it is based on fact. For instance, we were talking earlier about Pistol Pete, and he's a real person. I never knew that.
Right. True, a lot of people don't. He was a real person and a colorful person, and a very colorful person. And 3 universities, including Oklahoma State University, use the Pistol Pete image as their logo.
Not 3 in Oklahoma, though.
No. Oklahoma State, no. 2 others besides
There really
Oklahoma
would be
State.
some fighting over it. If that were the case, I think. Yeah. Well, how do you get inspired to write about a certain thing or a certain person? What is it that happens that gets you started on one thing like that? Well,
I've written a lot of nonfiction, and some of the nonfiction things I've written about just stick in my mind. I just can't forget them. And like you say, I think, well, there has to be something based on this. There has to be a book written about this or a good story written about it. And I just kind of let the story tell itself. I just start and go on, and pretty soon there's a fiction story. And some of the fiction stories are very, very true. They're almost like nonfiction. And some, I get, my imagination runs away with me. I have a lot of fun writing them. So basically, the nonfiction stories have to be real good to start with, and Oklahoma has a lot of them.
Oh, we're loaded with them. Well, how do you do the research on something like this? Where do you go for your research?
Well, these I've researched through the libraries over and over, the State Historical Society, and I've interviewed people for every one of these stories. I've interviewed somebody who lives there at one time or still lives there, or their dad or mom lived there, or grandpa lived there or something. I interview people for all these things. And that's, I get a lot out of the personal interviews.
Well, do you have a favorite person that you've written about in this book?
I have 2 or 3 favorites, I guess. But
yeah.
One of the favorites is the first story in there is based on a woman who grew up with the Kiowas. She was taken as a baby from a North Texas cabin, and she was raised as a member of the Kiowa tribe and was always a Kiowa, never spoke anything but Kiowa. And her descendants are she was referred to as Mrs. Goombai. Her name was Sainta Udal, which means killed with blunt arrow. But she was referred to as Mrs. Goombai, and she has descendants now. There's a big family of the Goombais in southwest Oklahoma. And that's one of my favorite characters I wrote about. And then another one is people in the town of Wetumpka, where they hold Sucker Day. That's a fun story, a very fun story. I had a lot of fun writing that one.
So it's not all stories about the most famous people from Oklahoma.
No, it isn't. Some are offbeat stories, really offbeat. And the last story is one of the most serious, of course. It's based on the Oklahoma City bombing. But a lot of stories before that are just very, very lighthearted, like the one about Sucker Day, and many others about very small towns. One about the early day horse traders that used to travel from one town to another, and it involves some real people. And several are just lighthearted, but like I say, they're offbeat stories that I think people should remember in Oklahoma.
Okay. Well, let's see. Well, you've got some events that you're going to be involved with coming up pretty soon, don't you?
Yes, uh-huh.
What's going on with you?
Well, one is the Western Writers of America. They're holding their convention in Oklahoma this year, next month, starting June the 16th.
Oh, great.
They'll be here for a week, and there's all kind of authors there, and all kind of things, Western writers. And I'll be one of them, and I've been asked to moderate a panel of Oklahoma writers in the West, writing about Oklahoma events in the West, so forth. And that's one of the events, and after that, there's some things at Norman. I'll speak to some library groups in Norman 2 or 3 times. I can't remember the exact dates right now, but and later the Red Book Book Festival in Shawnee, which is in November. So several things, but the Western Writers of America is the next big event, June the 16th through the 20th.
Okay, and it really is a big event. I mean, this is the national organization for people who write both fiction and nonfiction about the West, right?
Western writers in general, and they meet in some Western state each year. This year in Oklahoma.
Yeah, okay. And so we're talking about hundreds of writers, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is not just 10 or 15 guys getting together, right?
From all over the nation.
Yeah. I think that'll be exciting. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Now, can people get these dates and things if they visit your website?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, I have a website, and they can contact me through the website or find out about my books through the website.
There we go. We've got the address there on the screen.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And they can find out about this book on the website.
Oh, okay. Now, I was just thumbing through the book the other day, and I came across a chapter on a man named Goldsby. Now, people may not know who Mr. Goldsby was, but he had a more popular name, didn't he?
Yes, he certainly did. Cherokee Bill.
Yeah.
Yes. He was one of the very early day Oklahoma outlaws and Indian Territory outlaws, and he was one of the many who was executed. He was hanged under the jurisdiction of hanging Judge Parker in Fort Smith. And there's an interesting story about him, fiction based on his life.
Okay. So it's not all good guys that are in your book.
That's true. That's true. Not all good guys at all.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about Oklahoma history. There are good guys, bad guys, good girls, bad girls.
True.
I mean, it's all there. It's a kind of a microcosm of the American West in one state.
Exactly. And I felt like this should be portrayed with fiction stories as well as nonfiction. To me, it's a light reading, but it's still historical.
It's still fun. Okay. It's Thunder in the Heartland, 2nd edition. I've been chatting with the author, Jim Etter. Jim, thanks a lot for showing up here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Doug.
Good to see you.
Thank you.